Hi, Megan. I don't think we've met, but I've sort of coordinated these and kind of got
Sure.
back into doing it. But if you want to, after the land acknowledgement, I can sort of do the quick little introduction of Maddie and Ron.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Do you want me to go ahead and read it since it's 3 o'clock and we can get started, or do you want to wait a minute for
Oh, how many people do we have?
like
It's like 8,
Let's give people a
Okay.
couple more minutes.
including
And we just got another one, so
yeah.
yeah. And yeah, this is going to be very interesting. This is a great project.
I'm going to be happy to have. I hope we have some discussion at the end, Mike. That's always fun too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hopefully. Well, and this is a pretty good and pretty well-informed group usually. So yes, hopefully we will.
Definitely. Yolo and Solano County, the best.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get started. Okay, Megan. Yeah,
Okay.
let's get started.
Hello. Welcome to the Master Gardener's Workshop, and I'm just going to read the land acknowledgement. We should take a moment to acknowledge the land on which we are gathered for this meeting. For thousands of years, the land has been the home of the Patwin people, including the Yocha Dehe Winton Nation today. The Patwin people have remained committed to the stewardship of this land over many centuries. It has been cherished and protected as elders have instructed the young through generations. We're honored and grateful to be gathered here today on their traditional lands. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mike.
Okay, thank you. Well, welcome everybody. And today I think we've got a really special treat. Ron and Maddie are both restoration ecologists. Ron is lucky enough to be retired, but he worked for the Fish and Game and did planning, restoration planning for the state. And Maddie is still working, and she's a stewardship coordinator for the Putah Creek Council. Ron is also a master gardener. In fact, his wife's also a master gardener. So we have, we have a team, and they've both done presentations for this group before and for others, and they're very knowledgeable and their talks are always appreciated. So with that, I will let Ron and Maddie take over and tell us about the demonstration garden at the Putah Creek Watershed, which is, if you haven't been out to the Putah Creek Watershed, and it's definitely worth it. So, okay.
Thank you, Megan and Mike. Can everybody hear me okay? If you can't, please just say in the chat box if you don't hear us along the way. And if you have any clarifying questions along the way, just put them in the chat box and Megan will ping us to let us know and we'll answer them on the spot, or try to. But any other questions, just hold to the end and hopefully we can have a nice discussion. Put any questions you have in the chat box along the way that we address at the end. So thanks for coming to the Putah Creek Watershed Native Plant Demonstration Garden. It's a joint effort of the Master Gardeners of Yolo and Solano County with the Putah Creek Council, which Maddie will tell you more about. And with that, the next slide. So the watershed, whoops.
Sorry.
Too far.
Did it go back?
right there. So the map shows that the Putah Creek Council headquarters and Watershed Garden are located out at west of Winters. In fact, out by Pleasance Valley Road. And if you know where the Four Winds Growers citrus farm used to be, that's exactly where they are. It's the old nursery for that Four Winds Growers citrus farm. And the garden is right next to the headquarters. Next slide. The Putah Creek Council history, Maddie will give you an update on the history of the council.
All right, awesome. So I just briefly want to go over what Putah Creek Council is, who we are, and what we do. So we were founded in 1988, and we officially became a nonprofit in 1990. And our goals are to protect, restore, and bring awareness to benefit Putah Creek's wildlife, as well as the surrounding community. So in the year 2000, the Putah Creek Accord was formed and agreed upon, and this guarantees funding to restore and educate the community on Putah Creek. And this happens through partnerships with the Solano County Water Agency, and as well as Putah Creek Council and cities, counties, and landowners that reside along the creek. So today, Putah Creek Council has two main programs. We have our stewardship program and our education program. And our stewardship program is run by me. I'm the stewardship coordinator. And so I host weekly events that do restoration activities throughout the lower watershed. And these events are open to all community members, regardless of experience. You're welcome to come out and join us. We also have our education program, which is run by my colleague Brenda. And she does youth library and school programs. So like visiting the libraries, visiting the schools, getting the kids out there and involved. We also have our One Creek internship for adults. You can see a picture here of that on the right. We have our fall 2023 One Creek interns, and they're at their field day at Audubon's Bobcat Ranch. And I also just briefly wanted to mention that we have monthly canoe tours at Lake Solano. I think they're a really cool way to get out onto the creek, and we have docents that will point out the wildlife that you might see. So if you're interested in that, keep an eye out. And now I just want to go over the garden. So inspiration and goals. Why did we build this garden, right? So Putah Creek Council works with private and public entities throughout Yolo and Solano counties to restore watershed ecosystems. And this garden is one of those projects. So the main purpose of this garden is to showcase local native drought-tolerant species in a landscape setting. And this is basically to show people what they could do to replace their lawn and benefit local wildlife. Some people have never seen or be able to recognize a native plant, and so they could come out and visualize them. We have plant size on all our plants, as you could see that loop in there to the right. It also just shows people how big the plants get, when they bloom, all that fun stuff. So just inspiring people to replace their lawns. We also use it as an experimental garden, and so we try out new gardening and restoration techniques that could potentially be used at other sites. So the Solano County Water Agency is a huge partner with Putah Creek Council, and they have a lawn rebate program. And that was originally the main purpose of this garden, was to promote this lawn rebate program. But I also just want to mention that Yolo County has programs too. So if you're interested in racing your lawn, I would encourage you to look into that. You don't necessarily have to live in Solano County to benefit from this. So we wanted to inspire residents and businesses to provide ecosystem benefits on their own properties. So be a part of the restoration work that we're doing right there in your own backyard. We also wanted to build and strengthen collaborative relationships. Putah Creek Council and the Water Agency already have a strong relationship, as I've mentioned, but in this project, we were able to bring in the Master Gardeners of Yolo and Solano counties, which has been really awesome to work with them on. So that's really exciting. And with that, I will pass it back to Ron, and he's going to talk about designing the garden.
Okay, thanks, Maddie. So we divided the watershed into 3 sections. The upper watershed, which goes from Cobb Mountain, the headwaters of Putah Creek, up in Lake County, all the way down to Lake Berryessa and Monticello Dam, which is the containment dam forming Lake Berryessa. And then the middle section is includes Lake Berryessa, actually, going all the way down to Winters, or roughly the Putah Diversion Dam, which forms Lake Solano, if you've been out there. And then the lower section is from Lake Solano down to the Putah Creeks, or the Putah Sinks, in the Yolo Basin or Yolo Bypass. And what we did is, next slide. Yep. So what we did is we took two sources of information that you are able to access as well. CalScape, which is a tool put out by the California Native Plant Society, is really a great tool for determining what plants grow, or used to grow, if you will, in your yard, in your area, what native plants grow there. And it gives you all kinds of information on that. And then CalFlora, another organization, both nonprofit, has a tool called What Grows Here, also with a plethora of information on native and non-native plants, as I recall, mostly native. And the types of information that they provide, what you see on the right is a subset. They provide the time of year that the flowers are in bloom, the pictures of flowers and their colors, and also whether they're drought tolerant or need water, and so on. And so what we did is we selected the plants in the upper, middle, and lower watersheds using those tools, and we we selected for low water use native plants only that can grow in sun or shade. And we picked them subjectively. We decided, what would look good in a garden, which is obviously very subjective, and what would also be good for pollinators and other wildlife. So the reason drought tolerant, of course, is that the whole project is for putting in plants that are going to have low water use when you replace your lawn. And so this works for both Yolo and Solano County. And if you think of your yards, we are all little postage stamps in our greater watershed. And each time our house, everybody's house, was built, we generally removed all the native plants that were there. And now we have this opportunity to put little postage stamps back together and be a part of this greater effort for restoring wildlife, native wildlife. We're not talking big wildlife here. We're talking pollinators and birds and small rodents, many different things that would forage in the native plants in our watershed. And we've done that, my wife and I, in our yard. And I have to tell you, it's magnificent to see the bird life that comes and all the different wildlife that comes, as well as the plants. Next slide. So in planning the garden in the lower watershed, we found 50 perennial and annual shrub, herb, and grass species. Herb meaning what you traditionally think of a small flowering plant. And of those 50, 10 have been planted thus far, including the ones that you see at the bottom there. Pacific aster, I believe that all of these have been planted, if I recall correctly. Coffee berry is a really nice shrub, and one of my favorites, blue-eyed grass on the right. The top chart is just a subset of the information that we gather from those two sources. And on the right-hand column, we labeled, for our ease of noting, the color of the plant, so that we could try to get in this garden over time. It's only 2 years old. We can try to get plants that grow all year round because most native plants and most plants in general are early spring to early summer. And it would be great if we could have flowering plants somewhere in the garden and of different colors all year round. So we're really hoping to do that. Next slide. The middle Putah Creek watershed, we found 80 plants that meet the criteria: low water use, sun or shade, native, and over 15 of them have been planted thus far, including, I believe, all of these, if not all, most of them. California pipevine on the top left is just a gorgeous, unique flower if you've never seen it. Also one of my favorites, and it's also habitat for the pipevine swallowtail, which is a rare species, relatively rare species. Purple milkweed is a great plant for monarch butterfly, which I think most people have heard of as more or less declining and needing our help. California fuchsia on the bottom left is great for hummingbirds and others, and it flowers in the fall. So you see here a lot of flowering plants that are at different times of the year. And monkey flower on the bottom right is really kind of a fun one for kids. If you've never seen it, or if you have seen it and you don't know, if you touch the stigma in the center on top, it has evolved to close when you touch it. So for instance, if an insect were to pollinate, it's going to wrap itself, it's going to clasp itself together and put the pollen on that stigma from the pollinator. It's kind of a cool thing to watch. Next slide. In the upper watershed, we found 100 plants that met the criteria. And frankly, a lot of these plants grow in any of the watershed areas, upper, middle, and lower. Some of them are in all those areas, and some are only in one of the segments of the watershed. But generally, all these plants can grow in a garden. And importantly, with native plants, a lot of people have different definitions of what a native plant is. Some say native means native to California. Some think native to the Western US. Others think native only to this area. The reality is every plant species, I'm an ecologist and so is Maddie. And so, what we've learned is that every species has a different range. Some are very small. They're typically called endemic because they're only found in a small spot of the planet and nowhere else. There's many endemic species in California and in our area. And some species are widespread. They may be in all the Western US, even in Canada and Mexico. So when people say, well, we have climate change and they want to bring plants in, this is just an important side note. If they say it's native to Southern California, for instance, it may not be found, its range may not be in Northern California or in our area. And so we have to be careful. It's caution to not bring in plants that are going to displace the native plants that are here. That's one of the jobs of invasive non-native plant legal status, is to try to keep things from displacing the species that are endemic to an area. So we can talk about that if anybody has questions at the end. But here's some of the beautiful plants that we think would look wonderful in a garden. Tidy tips on the top right is one of my favorite, as well as many different calicortus or Mariposa lilies, as they're also known, butterfly lily, on the top left. And let's see, in the bottom middle, another milkweed that's very important for monarch habitat, monarch butterfly habitat. And with that, we could go to the next slide. For the tree and shrub row, obviously these grow intermixed among many of the other plants that we just saw in the 3 watershed segments. But because it's a garden and because we want to showcase this, we decided to put the tree and shrub row in the back so that you could see the others and the trees would not just overwhelm the other plants. And so blue elderberry is nice habitat. It's a beautiful plant, but it's also habitat for a rare bug called the valley elderberry longhorn beetle. And then on the top right, the interior live oak. Live means the leaves of this oak, this type of an oak tree. Anytime you hear live oak, it means the leaves are year-round, like an evergreen pine tree, year-round leaves. So it's a nice garden plant. As a tree, it's obviously a big tree, but not as big as valley oak. So if you have enough space, it's a good tree. If you don't have enough space, you probably won't want to pick as mature a big tree as this. And then a manzanita on the bottom left is a beautiful plant with these really nice bell-shaped flowers and little apples, manzanitas, tiny apples, is what that name means. And so it's like little red berries. And then on the bottom right, Western redbud is just beautiful, pink flowers with heart-shaped leaves and pod-like seeds. Also very pretty plant. Next slide.
All right.
So back to Maddie.
Yes. Next, we will be talking about the life of the garden, how the garden came to be. So in January of 2022, you could see on the left over there, we have a picture of the area before there was any work done. And as you could see, it was just a big grassy lawn with some non-native trees and cacti. In February of 2022, with the help of the Solano County Water Agency and their nice big equipment, we were able to grade the area, mulch it, and till it. And this really laid out the pathway as well as the planting space for the garden. Also in that same month and year, February 2022, we were able to flag the planting spots based on the watershed location as Ron just talked about. So the upper, middle, and lower watersheds, marking where the plants go. And we were able to plant our first species. As you can see, they're really, really tiny babies back in February of 2022. So it's been about 2.5 years since we first established our garden. So today we are still doing maintenance, and along with that maintenance comes with challenges, which we overcome. So we do volunteer days about once every 2 months, and this is open to all community members. So you're welcome to find one of these volunteer days in the garden and come join us and check it out in person and be a part of the work if you would like. And during these volunteer days, we replace and add more plants to the garden. We weed and we do mulch touch up and just various other things to keep the garden nice and in tip-top shape. I also do minor weekly maintenance to the garden. It's right next to my office, so that's pretty convenient. And some of this is just adding stakes to plants when they lean to straighten them out. I deadhead them, I'll mess with the irrigation and just other little things like that. Some challenges that we have faced, I call it the Great Earth Day windstorm. So as you can see in this picture on the right, I came to work one day and this huge humongous cypress tree had fallen actually on top of my favorite plant. But a happy ending to the story is that I was able to take cuttings of that plant and propagate them, and we were able to actually replant it on our last work day on September 14th that we just had. So overcoming challenges. We also have a lot of erosion. The gravel path tends to wash out in the storm. So we'll be working with the water agency to make like a water rock garden to help have a place for that water to go. We also have erosion on the slope. We have like a slopey area, and that tends to also have some erosion when we have rain. And so we're just looking at some species that could potentially hold the hill together and prevent that erosion. So like sedges and native grasses and things like that. Moving on to lessons and experiments. Like I said, this is an experimental garden. We try out new things. So just some overall lessons that we've had. we've had some deep planting basins created, and that's mostly just because we have so much mulch that getting to the soil can be challenging. And so these plants are drought tolerant, right? Which means they don't like these deep planting basins because they flood. So we're working on ways to try to make sure the plants are level to the ground. Tolerance to mulch also varies. Some of these plants really like the mulch. They love having a little nice blanket on them. Others not so much. They don't like having the mulch. They prefer disturbed soils. So just finding what conditions each plant species likes and balancing that out in a garden with so many species in it. Some current experiments we're doing, weed control is always a big one. We actually just recently installed a solarization tarp to see if that will help eradicate the very pesky Bermuda grass that's trying to turn it back into a lawn. We also do wildflower seeding, and this is kind of experimental because you get to see which species do best in which conditions. Like I said, we have some slopey areas, we have some flat areas. This past spring, tansy-leaved phacelia really took over on the hill, and we also had a lot of California poppies on the flat part. So just seeing which species do better where. The watering schedule is also kind of experimental. These are drought tolerant species, but when you first plant them, they have to get established, so you have to water them more often. Last year, we were doing about twice a week watering. This year, I lowered it down to once a week. And they seem to really be doing okay with that. They don't really seem to mind it, and it's pretty nice because it just proves that they're drought tolerant. And we are always open to more experiment ideas. It was actually some volunteers that came up with the solarization idea. So I really love incorporating community ideas. So if you ever come out and you have any ideas, I'm totally open to hearing that. Some current projects we're doing, I worked with a graphic artist to make some interpretive signage, which kind of just will summarize me and Ron's presentation today, but in sign format at the garden so that everyone could briefly educate themselves on what's going on. And so those should be installed in just a couple months here. I'm also putting up QR codes on our plant ID signs to link people to calscape.org, which is one of the websites Ron talked about. And this will just tell people the conditions that the plants like, so how much water, sunlight, wildlife it supports, all that good stuff. So if someone finds a plant they might want in their garden, they're able to scan it and go straight to calscape.org for that plant. I also do bird box monitoring at Sackett Ranch in partnership with UC Davis. We have 5 bird boxes on our property, and I actually put one right in the garden. And in that bird box, we actually had a successful family of ash-throated flycatchers. You can see some pictures here on the right. The cute eggs, I think the eggs are super pretty looking with the brown painted marks. So we had 5 of those, and all 5 babies successfully hatched with no issues. And UC Davis actually comes and puts bands on their legs so that we could see if they return next year. And the bands correlate to a name. So I was actually able to name all of these babies after plant species that we have in the garden. So I thought that was really cute and full circle moment. Moving on to the future of the garden. It's not going anywhere. We have some cool plans for it. Eventually, we want to remove those non-native trees so that they no longer fall on my plants. As Ron talked about, we're making a tree and shrub layer. And once those get tall enough to provide adequate shade, then hopefully we'll take out the non-native cypress trees. We also want to add a picnic bench just for people to enjoy the area. We want to make sure it's open to the public. It's on private property, so currently you can only come if you're invited, whether that's for a volunteer day or you can also schedule a time with me to come out and see it. That's totally fine too. But just looking for ways for people to come see it easier since it is a demonstration garden. Also just letting the garden establish further. It's only 2.5 years old. Some of these plants take quite a long time to establish. So just allowing it time to further develop in that space and really look like a nice landscape garden. And landscape garden concepts are kind of new for Putah Creek Council. We do a lot of restoration work straight out in the wild. And so having something that's so manicured and babied constantly is new for us. And it would be cool if we were able to continue and do more of these projects in other sites in the watershed. We also want to continue our partnerships, continuing to plan and learn in the garden together, continue to promote wildlife-friendly home landscaping. We want to continue to involve the public and master gardeners in our volunteer work days. Those will not stop. I always want to bring people out and get them involved. And then something relatively new that we've been starting to do is bring our One Creek interns out into the garden. As you can see in this picture on the left, our summer 2024 crew, so the crew that just finished up in the end of last month, they spent their very first workday in the garden. And bringing them out to the garden is nice because it's different than our typical restoration sites that they go to with our regional partners. They're also usually out in the wild, so they get to see kind of a landscape garden such as this. And I also find it useful to bring them out on their first day because we have plant ID signs on every single plant. So it allows them to just walk around and physically see the plants that they might end up working with and the scientific and the common name right next to it. I think that's pretty helpful. Expanding partnerships. It would be great if the Master Gardeners could share knowledge at other Putah Creek Council programs. In addition to that, I also like bringing people out into the garden as kind of like a teaching site. So I have a volunteer stewardship team that we do a training for, and I like bringing them out to the garden, kind of for the same reason as the interns. That allows them to see the plants that they're going to be working with the name right next to it. I also sometimes occasionally have them do work out there as just kind of like a teaching site. We also have a Putah Creek after school club with Winters Middle School, so it'd be great if we can either have the Master Gardeners come and share some knowledge or potentially bring them out to the garden so that they could see it. That would be really cool. It would be great if we could partner on more native plant gardens managed by Putah Creek Council and the Solano County Water Agency. We have one at Winters Nature Park right next to the PG&E extension, a little pollinator garden. So it would be cool if we could continue to work on that, maybe get the Master Gardeners involved, or even just work on making new watershed gardens, native plant gardens throughout the watershed. We also would love to serve underserved communities, people that just don't have the opportunity to go out and garden. Maybe they live in an apartment with no outdoor space. Maybe they just don't have the means to come out into the wild and experience it. It would be nice to work on ways to get people out into the garden that might not have any other opportunities to do so. And having a success story with a garden such as this allows us to apply for new grants that will allow us to continue to make new gardens and continue to do this restoration work that gets people involved throughout the watershed. And finally, I would just urge you, if you have any interest in the stewardship program, any of our education program, the canoe tours, our One Creek internship, please check out putahcreekcouncil.org. And with that, Ron and I are open to any questions. And I just want to say thank you so much for logging in and hearing us out.
Thank you so much for that presentation. That was wonderful.
Yeah, that was good.
One of the questions that was put in the chat was, when and how can people visit the garden? You may have already gone over that, but
yeah, I briefly did. So right now it's on Sackett Ranch, which is owned by the Solano County Water Agency, so you can't just come out and see it. The best way would be to come to one of our volunteer events. But if you would like to come out, you could reach out to me. My email is super simple. It's just Maddie@putahcreekcouncil.org. I have worked with youth organizations and different clubs and have done just private tours of the garden. So you're welcome to reach out to me to set that up.
And then there was one other question, but it was answered by Ron. So I can read the question if you'd like. Will the presentation or plant list be shared? And Ron answered, our watershed native plant spreadsheet isn't in a format to share at this point. However, the Yolo Master Gardeners has a list of native plants that should be accessible on request to the Yolo Master Gardeners help desk at mgyolo@ucdavis.edu or at the Davis Farmers Market Master Gardeners table. Those are all of our questions so far. Unless anyone else has more questions or comments.
I just really quick wanted to add on to what Ron said about the plant list. I actually made an ArcGIS story map, which is basically just it's basically a little web page where it has kind of like a summary of what me and Ron are talking about, but there's also an interactive map where you could see every single plant species we planted in the garden as of December 2023. So it's a little old, but pretty current. And let me see. It's not on our website yet, but if you ever sign up for one of our volunteer days in the garden, it's on the registration form. Or if you want to reach out to me, I could send you the link to that.
And I put your email address in the chat box, Maddie, if you want to.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, if people want to, you know, unmute or even open up your video, you know, we can have a bit more of a discussion. You know, Ron or Maddie, I was wondering, could you reiterate the volunteer opportunities that are possible out there? It sounds like you have regular work days.
Yeah, so I would say roughly every 2 months or so we do a volunteer day at the garden. We just had one that passed on September 14th, so right now I don't have any other ones scheduled. But that's not to say we won't ever have one out there again. There definitely will be at some point, just in the next couple of months. In the meantime, if you want to volunteer at any of our other restoration projects that we're doing, you can go to putahcreekcouncil.org, and we have an events page, and it has all of our events listed, and you could check that out. Or you could reach out to my colleague Brenda. She runs a volunteer docent program at Lake Solano Park. So if you're not super into the hands-on stuff, but still want to be involved and you're knowledgeable about wildlife, that's also an opportunity you could do.
Okay, great.
I have a question for the group if anybody's interested in engaging. The question is, and I appreciate everybody who's online, just, you know, Putah Creek Council since 1990, roughly, has been restoring the watershed, cleaning it up and leading restoration cleanups and watershed restoration. And this expansion idea is in collaboration with the Solano County Water Agency, and really all people, master gardeners and citizens of Yolo, residents of Yolo and Solano counties. How can we use our own properties in a fun way, not to put in just native plants? We don't have only native plants in our yard. We have all kinds of vegetables and fruit trees and non-native, non-invasive plants. How can we do our little bit, if you will, to restore our watershed? What ideas do people have that that can be done by each of us that live in the watershed, or others that we can inspire to help out? Hope that was a clear enough question. How do we restore our watershed yard by yard in a little way?
Well, I'll jump in, because I think one thing people can do is look at ways to keep the water that falls on your yard in your yard. And I know Ron actually did a presentation on just that, on you know, water gardens. You could do swales, but I don't know if that exactly answers the question for the Putah Creek watershed, but an awful lot of groundwater goes into the Putah Creek that we don't even see.
Yeah.
And that's the way creeks and rivers work. I mean, there's this whole underground system of water that's flowing in and out of them that we don't see. But I think improving our groundwater situation probably helps.
I have something to contribute, Mike. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. My name's Kathy Brown. I live in West Sacramento in Yolo County, but I take care of a garden in Clarksburg. And what we've done for the community, it's a community garden as well as an elementary school learning garden. And the master gardeners down there, we're all teaching the elementary school classes. They come through every other week or so. And we put in with the Boy Scouts, a certified wildlife area that's 80–90% native. Actually, I think it's more than that. But we also put in a pollinator section, and the children, each grade has a box where they do planting. But I have to say that the entire community is shocked when you talk about native plants. I mean, it's surprising. These people are very into their gardens and a lot of them are farmers or they own vineyards, yet the whole native thing is something that's foreign to them. And I think that one way is just to get out there, get the kids in there, and they bring everybody else, to spread the word about native gardens.
That's great contribution. Thoughts to think about how to make it just acceptable to have native plants. What is that, and how is that okay?
Well, and most people don't have the resources. And we've also set up signage. We're not done with it yet. It's still a work in progress, and it has a barcode or a QR code that refers you to Cowscape, to that plant. And so that when people look at the plant and they think, oh, I really like this, or I really don't like it, it kind of looks like a weed, they can get all the information they need. I'm hoping that people will notice it and start working on their own. But and you do see a little bit of it, but just people just don't know about it.
So Kathy, where is this?
This is in Clarksburg. It's the Delta Elementary Charter School.
That's great.
Has this garden. A community member donated a piece of property, and there was a school garden on there on the property, but I kind of worked over the Boy Scouts and got them excited at putting in a native garden. And it's just they're very excited about it. The kids love the idea. They don't really understand fully. It's TK through 6th grade. So it's becoming just commonplace for them. And they're bringing parents after school to look at it.
That's really cool. Kudos to you for doing that.
It's wonderful. Well, my grandson decided to do an Eagle project and put this in, and the school backed him up. And so that's how we got the ball rolling.
I love the idea that you did that. I love the idea that you did that with the Boy Scouts. That's really good.
Well, I want them all to be, to take ownership of the garden.
Yeah.
To see it, to experience, to do the planting. Last spring, we had the 6th grade class plant native plants, but they feel like it's theirs when they're actually doing the planting and doing the work. And it's been really rewarding.
That's great. I wonder if anybody else has ideas. I like that you did that with the Scouts. It could be Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts or other groups.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It could be students at the elementary school rather than someone, the parents coming in and putting it in. I mean, obviously it takes a lot of parent help to get these things going, but I really think the kids need to physically experience it and deal with some of the challenges that it offers.
Yeah.
Didn't you write an article about this recently, Kathy?
I think Jelena wrote an article, just a brief one, that was posted there on the Master Gardener site. And Julina Rousseau and DJ Anderson, they're both new Master Gardeners this year. And they're both working in the garden. We have a junior garden program after school once a week. We have the regular classes. And I've even got high school kids coming in to do volunteer work because it's a requirement of the high school down in Clarksburg. So
well, if any master gardeners or others want to, engage in this in a fun way at whatever level anybody wants, from 0 to 100%, let's say, with Maddie and me and others to just inspire others to be involved at whatever fun level they want. I think it's a great effort that's going to grow over time. No pun intended.
yeah, I do too.
Mike, any other thoughts, or anybody else on the line? Questions, thoughts on this? I think with that we can close.
I had just one other question, Ron. And I don't know if people can hear in the background, my wife's doing something very noisy in the kitchen, but where would people access native plants? I mean, I know the Yolo Master Gardeners has a plant sale coming up early October. It would be on the website, and I looked quickly at the list, and I think there are a lot of native plants there. But are there any recommendations if people want to see native plants other places and maybe purchase some, either Solano County or Yolo County?
Yeah, absolutely. Yolo County Master Gardeners has a native plant nursery list, which I think is up to date. The California Native Plant Society has Maddie has probably better handle on their site and what they have, and I believe they just had a sale. Go ahead.
We are actually, the Solano CNPS is having a plant sale. The online ordering's open right now until Sunday, and we're having our in-person sale on Saturday, October 5th. And if you pre-order, you can pick up your plants in Fairfield if you ask, or you can come visit our in-person sale in Benicia. So I would just say check out your local CNPS chapters. A lot of them have plant sales. I know Napa's having a plant sale October 5th. The Sac Valley CNPS has fall plant sales. So just check out your local Native Plant Society chapter.
Thank you. And then also a lot of the commercial nurseries have, as a part of their stock, native plants. For instance, Morningstar Nursery out by near where the where the Putah Creek Council headquarters is, not far from there. They have a lot of herbs, obviously, but also some native plants. And the UC Davis Arboretum has native plants among its stock. They obviously don't sell only native plants, but they will tell you which ones are native.
You know where we got a lot of ours was this is Kathy Brown again. Woodland High School in the spring this year they had at least 2 opportunities, and they had a lot of native plants, pollinators, and they were very inexpensive. I think they were like $5 a plant. And that was the ones that our students used in Clarksburg to plant. About half of the garden was planted from those, and they were wonderful plants. They're growing beautifully, very strong and good, and it supports a really good high school program in Woodland.
Yeah, that's a great program. They have vegetables and other things there.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, should we wrap up, Mike and Megan, Maddie?
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it.
All right. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for coming, folks.
And if
I
people want to
didn't
see
look,
the
I can't remember
recording,
what we have in 2 weeks, but there will be same time, same place. There will be a program. And yes, Ron and Maddie, thank you very much. It was a great presentation. So,
and
Yeah.
if people want to see the recording, Mike, where would they go?
I don't know how long it'll take to get it up. I haven't looked recently, but on the Yolo Master Gardener website, there's a section on the left with, various parts of the website you can access. One of them is public presentations, and a lot of these presentations are posted there, and you can watch the video again.
Okay, because somebody emailed and asked me, they won't be able to come to this, but they want to know if
Yeah.
it would be recorded to where to access it.
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be the place. And as I said, I don't know how long it's taking to get them up these days. Could be, a week or 2 or a month, but
Okay.
should make it.
All right.
And there are a lot of other presentations there too. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Super. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
Have a
Thanks,
good
you.
day.
Megan.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.